When Gears of War debuted to the world, it was to the gentle trilling of a piano. Gary Jules' famous cover of Mad World plays as a mysterious musclehead explores the ruins of a desolate civilization. He comes face to face with a monolithic armored alien, and the title drops. It was as if the whole world paused to utter a single phrase. That's not Halo 3. What the fuck? And it was never going to be Halo 3. Behind closed doors, Microsoft and Bungie knew that Halo 3 would not be ready for the release of their upcoming console, the Xbox 360. They had just staked their claim in the industry, and the game that really got them there couldn't be followed up in time for launch. Old wisdom holds that exclusives sell hardware, so they needed a killer app to sell this machine. But they were lucky, as it turned out, because if nothing else, Gears of War was killer. The trailer made this obvious when it debuted at E3 in 2005. Beautifully rendered in-engine visuals, a mature, bleak tone, and an Oscar-worthy color palette as brown as it was gray. Gears of War was clearly hungry to make a splash, and that makes perfect sense. The dev team at Epic Games, rallied behind action auteur Cliff Bleszinski, worked through pitch after pitch until they struck gold. They would make the ultimate action horror game. A playable war movie, rich with the atmospheric violence of Resident Evil 4, and an innovative cover system inspired by the PS2 game Kill Switch. The hype, as they say, was real. In 2005, IGN wrote, "Sorry, Bungie, we're sure Halo 3 will be quite hot, but if it never came out, we'd be happy with Gears of War." Which, in retrospect, is an insane sentence, but not unfounded. When Gears of War came out, it blew the industry away, legitimized the Xbox 360's vision of online multiplayer and increasingly cinematic shooter games, and flipped the script on Sony's dominance, only weeks before the PlayStation 3 came out. These days, Gears of War is remembered a little less fondly, mostly for its tropey elements among non-fans, the bulky, beefy main cast of gravelly men, the sticky cover system, which quickly became widespread, and the gritty, desaturated action throughout. But Gears is no forgettable blockbuster. As far as I'm concerned, it's one of the greatest shooters of its time, with level design that still crackles with innovation to this day. So settle in. Grab your buffalo tater tots and Monster energy drinks, and let's talk about a game that made history.
What are you doing here?
Getting you out. Here, put this on. You'll need it.
You could get in a lot of trouble for doing this.
Not anymore. Things have changed. We better go.
What about the other prisoners? You can't just leave them here.
They're gone. Hoffman pardoned everybody.
Is that right?
Welcome back to the army, soldier.
Suit me, Finny?
Gears begins with Marcus Phoenix, a soldier imprisoned after a gambit to save his father put him on the wrong side of the law. But as the world, which has been at war for as long as it can remember, teeters on the edge of destruction at the hand of an alien menace, his old squad mate Dom busts him out and rushes him to the front line. As soldiers in the oppressive world-spanning coalition of ordered governments, or cog, like a gear, like a cog, gear of war, Marcus and the rest of Delta Squad have a narrow chance to end this war with the Locust once and for all. Gears' story is, it's exactly what it needs to be. It gives you everything you want. Gory, meaty backdrop for a gory, meaty adventure. That's not to say it's paper thin or anything. There is lore. The planet Sarah has a relatively robust history that plays into the main conflict. You see a world so swallowed by 100 years of continuous warfare that society's every facet is built to keep that war machine moving. At the center of it all is a pretty serviceable through line about human greed, the intersection of war and industry, and the cultural friction between bloodthirsty governments, the soldiers they spend, and the citizens caught in the middle.
I don't want people seeing me with you, all right? It's not good for business, man.
It's not exactly First Blood or Full Metal Jacket, but it's pretty good. I like it. It's just that when I'm playing Gears of War, I'm a little preoccupied. This game really shines in the departments of level design and gunplay. This is a tactical, cover-based shooter, and one of the first of its breed, really. Less run and gun, more stop and pop. I love saying that. Whereas Cliffy B's previous endeavors like Jazz Jackrabbit and Unreal are all about movement and momentum and action, Gears of War occasionally asks you to stop moving because you might get shot out there. From the very first level, you are organically taught to use the environment as a shield, because if you don't,
you die.
Enemies are lethal, so cover is not optional. It quickly becomes a game of angles, like pool, where Marcus is your big, beefy cue ball. Find a sightline that keeps your head safe and enemy heads in view, and sink those balls, baby.
Editor's note: Google if "sink those balls" is a real billiards term.
This is, the genius of Gears. It's not a cerebral game to play, but the levels are thoughtful in their deliberate construction, so much that it feels intuitive and natural to play them the way they want you to. Are you with me? Let me put it like this. Cover is your only safe space, and when you kill an enemy taking cover, their cover is now your cover. More than most other shooters, space is your most valuable resource, so you're always thinking about where you are, where the locusts are, and how you're going to advance. After all, if you don't, they will. Let them get too close, and you're fucking dead. Tim Rogers, who you may know from Action Button or Kotaku, compared Gears of War to American football, and I think he's really onto something with that. Levels constantly spill out into these vertical battlefields teeming with soldiers on the defensive, and you're competing to push those defenses back and score a touchdown of sorts by making it to the far side. Everyone's even got huge shoulders and color-coded outfits.
Baseball is played on a diamond in a park, the baseball park. Football is played on a gridiron in a stadium, War Memorial Stadium. In baseball, you wear a cap. In football, you wear a helmet.
But it's even better because when you tackle someone, they fucking die. And instead of tackling them, you do this shit. It's, in a word, it's exhilarating. But that's enough sports comparisons. To put it in a way that's a little less abstract, Gears excels at funneling you through its linear maps in an engaging way. It's almost like an on-rails shooter, and that might sound like an insult, but it's really not. It's just paced so well. Mount cover, blow away aliens until the coast is clear, and advance. Or worm your way past and flank them with a shotgun. After all, this is a game about guns, and let's talk about guns for a minute. The Lancer is your all-purpose mid-range powerhouse, good in nearly all situations for just delousing the environment with bullets. It's the series calling card for a reason, not only because of its high power level, but because of its this. It's just so good. Hold down the melee button in close range and prepare to turn your enemies into sausage stuffing. Effective? Sometimes. Satisfying? All day long, baby. Your other mid-range bullet hose is the Hammer Burst. It doesn't have the same fun factor as the Lancer exactly, but its controlled burst fire comes in clutch when you need a bit of precision in your life. You also find a ton of ammo for this thing, since it's a favorite among Locust drones, so it's sort of old reliable in that regard. The long shot and the torque bow are your long-range options, with the former being a pretty standard sniper rifle and the latter being a slightly more explosive option. Not much to say about these other than they are deeply satisfying to use, and they serve their purpose well. These are also some of the best guns for showcasing the game's excellent audio design. There's also the Gnasher, a close-up sneeze-em-to-death kind of shotgun-type situation. Up close, it's an insta-gib. At other ranges, it may as well not be there. It's fun enough to use, but not nearly the death machine it would become in later entries. The Snub is your typical do-nothing pistol. I'm sure someone will come to this thing's defense, but I don't care. This thing sucks. It makes me sad. Get it out of here, man. I need the Boltok anyway. This little number is like the Snub after a can of spinach, if you know what I'm saying. It's a meaty, punchy revolver that will turn any number of Locust heads into tomato paste for days. As always, we save the best for last, right? And the Hammer of Dawn has no competition. It's hardly a gun at all, more of a wieldable action set piece. Only usable in designated areas, the hammer calls down an orbital beam of burning laser hotness. Take that, Obama! It's a good damage cannon for the largest of the Locust you'll encounter, and again, it's more of a novelty than a traditional firearm, but come on, man, that gets my ears wiggling. Another standout aspect of the gunplay is the active reloading. When you reload your gun, you have a brief window where, if you hit the reload key again, you can reload instantly. If you nail the absolute edge of the window, then you also boost your damage for a little bit, and it makes this wonderful sound. A lot of Gears' challenge, especially on higher difficulties, comes from the way it splits your attention, and I think the active reloading slots into that aspect of the gameplay really well. So yeah, between the game's thoughtful level layouts and robust selection of toys, Gears of War is a suitable playground for even the pickiest of gore-fanatical boneheads. I cannot praise the violence enough. The game spans about 9 hours all told and leads to a pretty epic final battle. Might sound like a short game, but you are dealing primarily with just back-to-back firefights and not too much else. So overall, I think the game does a good job of getting you in, letting you soak in that juicy combat, and then wrapping things up. There's more to the levels than combat, though, of course, like the narrative. The narrative doesn't waste your time much, but it is there. Characters bark back and forth about this and that, swearing like sailors and flexing their steamy, oversized muscles. Seriously, these guys have biceps like basketballs. Something I like is that the game doesn't feel pressured to explain its world to you, with people referencing events and proper nouns and
That resonator.
without dry exposition to bog things down. The specifics are elaborated on in later games and hidden in the margins, quite literally in the case of the cog tag collectibles littering each level with the memorabilia of your fallen comrades. All this together, and Gears strikes a tone that ping-pongs between indulgently high-octane and dismally bleak, and it really works for me. Games 2 and 3 have a bit more going on in the narrative department. If there's anything you can criticize this game's story for, it's a little scant. They're bad aliens and you kill them. It gets to the point. The characters, though, are a different story. They are immediately memorable and just fun. You have Marcus, the opaque meathead with an attitude.
I don't think I can count that high.
Dom, the irreplaceable best friend with a dry wit. Cole,
As in the coal train?
Yeah, that's right.
the charismatic celebrity who every other character loves as much as you love him. And Baird, the annoying asshole. You can't have a fearsome foursome without an annoying asshole. The characters aren't particularly deep, of course, but, it's a co-op shooter. You just want them to be charming and engaging and likable, and they absolutely are from the minute you start. They're also quite well acted. The game in general is acted very well. Presentation fares, it fares okay. This era of realism in video games was criticized a lot for its nigh monochromatic color palettes, and Gears of War really lives up to the name there. I do think this improves as the series goes on, but this first entry only dabbles with interesting colors every now and again. Just in terms of technical beef, of course, the game looked amazing on the 360. I remember thinking this and Assassin's Creed were like indistinguishable from real life when I was a kid. Funny how things change there. Of course, I'm playing the Ultimate Edition here, which is significantly brushed up and sort of smooths out the art style to be more in line with later entries in the franchise. But the original game, despite its crust, does have really impressive models for the era, and the remaster I think looks quite good too. It catches some heat for toning down the game's greasier, maybe more horror-inspired early aesthetic. But honestly, I don't think the difference moves the needle that awful much. It'll come down to personal preference, I think. And the environments are pretty good. I like the quasi-religious bent of COG architecture. It really drives home how all-encompassing and oppressive the military is in this world. Seeing it ravaged by alien invasion and, in places, overtaken by citizenry clinging to the margins, it's a nice atmosphere, even if, again, it tends to be quite gray. The music in Gears of War is good, but just good, I think. Composed by Kevin Ripple, there are some genuine standouts here. The main theme in particular is just chilling and iconic for a reason. It really encapsulates the game's blood-stained melancholy just perfectly. But beyond that, there's nothing that really stuck out to me, and it occasionally errs on the generic side of things. As I say, it's not bad, just not striking in the way something like Halo might have been around the same time. That, in a nutshell, is Gears of War. It's not my favorite game in the series, but it is an explosive debut. It's no surprise at all that this game immediately cemented itself as a modern classic, and is still remembered as one of the Xbox 360's finest titles. Deathmatch multiplayer gave this game some staying power until the sequel would land on the same console, but for me it's really the campaign that makes Gears of War an absolute grand slam of a game. If you have not done so, I implore you to consider getting a friend on the same couch as you and tearing through the story mode. The original game is on Game Pass, and You can get the Ultimate Edition on Xbox and PC, and honestly, it's unparalleled if you're looking for shoot-'em-up co-op action. And yet, it wouldn't be long until Epic Games was on to bigger and better things. Could a sequel live up to the ever-swelling hype? Well, that's a video for another time, my friends. Give it a like if you like, and thanks for watching.